Hey everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, and talent access to help you harness your own inner tenacity and drive your career forward. I am thrilled to welcome my guest today, Bert Miller. To say he's an industry vet is an understatement. With over 25 years of leadership experience in the world of work, he currently serves as the chairman of Protis Global and Ace Talent Curators and the president and CEO of MRINe Network, a network-centric recruitment organization that offers consulting, training, contract staffing, and community building with over 325 search firms worldwide. That is crazy. He's an active speaker, mentor, advisor, and investor, and he also hosts the MRINe Network podcast and the new video series, Beyond the Bottom Line. Who did you just have on? The guy from Virgin Hotels?
Yeah, we just had the CEO of Virgin Hotels, Raul Liao.
Yeah, definitely check that out, guys. And I deeply admire and respect Bert and what he's building. He's an expert on so many things that we're going to dig into, including the world of work. So let's do this. Bert Miller, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That's a hell of an entry, so I appreciate the introduction.
I mean, listen, if I learned anything from you and Joe, it's if you're going to do something, freaking do it right. Do it proper. Put on a good show, a good production for the people.
You're doing that. I mean, look at NHP and look at that studio you built back there, and then you're bouncing into Clubhouse and hosting Clubhouse rooms. I mean, you're doing it all.
I try to be, right? Like, and that's what I learned from you guys. You got to be everywhere. So let's bring my tribe up to speed. And on this show, we'd like to really get into the career, the early career, because that's where the lessons learned. And you spoke before about your early time at EJ Gallo and then on to Revlon. Looking back on it now, from where you are to looking back on it now, what were a couple of those really key early lessons from the early days of your career that you apply now?
Yeah, great question. Well, before my career, I would say my father said something that stuck with me to this very day, and that is don't touch things twice. So efficiency was learned at a very early age when you're, roofing, taking up shingles up a ladder on a roof. Don't touch them twice, because it ends up being a long day. Yeah, but professionally, man, I think what I got out of my time was, and I've written some of my posts on this, Adam. One of my mentors at Revlon asked me once, "Hey man, let me kind of see your schedule for the next month. What are you doing? Where are you going?" I show him my schedule, and he's going, "Interesting." He's going, "Why are you going here? Why are you going there?" Well, those folks need a lot of help. They're not my best performers, and so the biggest lesson I got there was, your tribe. Used the word tribe earlier. It is spend time developing your great people, because if you don't continue to work with your great people, they're always watching you, and those are the ones that end up leaving. So I learned that you can't, how to prioritize your time.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to people. And as you know, I'm building a company here at NHP. I really don't talk about it a lot, and I really should spend some more time talking about I'm building a recruiting business, and essentially it's an RPO. And I'm learning that the value of good people, especially in the world of recruitment, and how to retain them and how to treat them. And it's funny, I look back, Bert, and I'm like, wow, all those lessons I've learned from the good, the bad, and the ugly as far as leaders that I've worked for. And I want to be the best, and those lessons, it's incredible. But let's rewind. So after you left the Revlon, you started, Protis Global, which has been up for 25 years now. How did that come about? How did you make that transition from the world of, Revlon and EJ Gallo into the world of recruiting?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, Adam. I mean, when I resigned to the president of Revlon on the 49th floor in New York City of our building, I just remember getting on that plane September 19th, 1995, and flying back to Indianapolis, where Protis was originally headquartered. And prior to that, Adam, what I did was I took cash advances I applied for credit cards, took cash advances on credit cards, and started Protis Global from scratch, and learned the world of work and what back then was called headhunting and recruitment, as you know. And we launched Protis Global from a dead start, and under the MRINe network umbrella, actually as a franchisor, and we were a member of the MRINe network. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I think I quit twice that first year, but I made that transition. And it's been really, it's the road less traveled, and that's made all the difference.
I think that's why I'm so drawn to you and Joe, because our stories, I mean, I'm doing the same thing. It's crazy. And I am thankful that I have you guys to look at as mentors and say, you guys were exactly where I was 25 years ago. And I look at it, and that's why it was important for me when I came down to bring my wife and daughter to say, hey, look, these guys did the same thing. And she knew it right away. And it was inspiring, and I love it. So today you wear a lot of hats, Bert. Could you briefly break down to the listeners? Well, first I have a question. Where did the name Protis Global come from? Because when I was naming my company, I had a hard time. And when my wife said to me, she goes, stop overthinking it. She goes, stop overthinking it. And what is the most important thing to you? And I say it all the time. It's my daughter's initials, NHP. Nina Harrison Poser, and I named it. Where did Protis come from?
Yeah, we actually hired a firm 22 years ago, and Protis originates Greek word protos. Protos was difficult to say. Protos Global, Protos Executive Innovations back in the day.
Sounds like a medicine,
yeah, it does. It does.
Proctology product.
Yeah, so we just kind of derived at a word that's from that Greek word protos, and came up with Protis. It was easier. It just rolled off the tongue better. No, it sounds, you want to have a really great story. It's no more complicated than that.
Yeah, and I love it. And if you look at the website, you see a lot of different things. Can you break down for everybody exactly, the balance? Protis, Ace Talent Curators, MRI Network. What's like the relationship, the dynamic, the give and take between all of them?
Yeah, well, Adam, you've been here, so you've been to the buildings that we sit here at Delray Beach. We have a family of businesses right here on this particular office park, and so it allows me to bounce from one to one, from one office to the other office, and spend time. And it's important to do that. In many ways, they have some lineage tied to them besides me, and that is people that sometimes cross over into other parts of the other companies. And I think it's real important that we've really built this with an ecosystem in mind. So the ecosystem in mind is, how do we create a system of a supply chain and talent access space in the world of work? And that's the whole origination of pulling these all together, and the opportunity to do that. And part of that is you have to communicate, and communication is the most critical component of anything you do.
It's the synergies that you're able to pull from one another. And is there a lot of crossover with folks that work across the different organizations? Are you able to find like the best skills, the best talents for each particular need, different projects, different workflows? Or do you kind of keep it church and state?
Yeah, man. No church and state here. We all work together. So Emily Fair, we just hired our new VP of sales for MRI Network. And so she was originally a Protis candidate. And the more I got to know her, and the more I understood what she wanted in her personal scorecard and what was going to be great for her career, it just made a lot of sense that she become part of working with us here at MRI Network versus, Protis Global at that time. I mean, Protis, I would have loved her to have her Protis, but I think we'd have sold her short if we'd done that.
Let's give everyone a little history lesson here. I preach the value of long-term relationships, and that's really what this business is about here. Going back 25 years when you jumped in the people game, what have you seen as the big change? Where's the move to? I mean, aside from the tech, right? We've spoke about it for years. We've gone from the fax machines to the snail mail. I think Joe Mullings actually rode a dinosaur like in the Flintstones to deliver resumes 30 years ago. But it always comes down to relationships. But what have you seen at a high level? What do you think has changed in the last 25 years across talent access?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, today we have the multi-generational professionals that are in and working in our organizations today. There's 5 of them, right? I mean, we have Z, we have millennials, we have Xers, we have boomers, et cetera. And so you have you have all these generations working together and needing to embrace one another. And certainly you have some challenges with that. When I started Protis Global almost 27 years ago, actually, and when we did that, Adam, it was the same group of people. I was, 32, 33 years old. I hired people like me. We were all the same generation. It was easy to move forward. And then as we've progressed, and yes, media and technology has played a role of communication and connectivity, where we see depth of other things, and we see things that may not always be what they appear to be because of how it's been represented. And I think we are overloaded with an incredible amount of information, but what's not changed, some things just stay the same, and that is networking. To your point, the long-term relationship is truly, you've seen the t-shirt, your network is your net worth. That is so true. And building those authentic, real relationships tend to, play out over the course of 10, 15, 20 years.
And that's why companies have loyalty. And I look now, and everyone is so transactional. I'm not even talking about the millennials and the Z's. I mean, I see even boomers. Everyone wants something quick. They want like instant satisfaction, instant gratification, instant results. And that's not how recruiting works. That's not how long-term growth works. It's about establishing real relationships with clients, providing value, and being invaluable.
I mean, people think in finite terms so often, right? They see the 6 inches in front of their nose, and really, for those who understand the long game or the infinite game, and the way that you're able to see that and have a lens toward that, Adam, is that you're doing something you're passionate about. It's life. It's not work life. It's just life and what you do. And when you approach it that way, there's energy, there's passion, there's caring for what you're doing, there's working on yourself, there's purpose behind it. And when you have that, you're able then to see a longer game versus trying to get something, today.
Speaking of the long game, let's talk a little about 2019. You acquired the MRI network. Unpack that decision. Unpack that thought process. Speaking of the long game.
Yeah, it's a heck of a story, and I don't know if we have enough time for it. 2019, yeah, 2019, we had an opportunity. We were part of the MRI network. Candidly, MRI network had been. It lost its rudder. Didn't really know where it was headed.
Happens. Long time in the water.
Yeah, and it kept kind of going in circles, and then it would turn the other way somehow with the shift of the current, and it would turn circles that way too. And so we saw that happening, and we saw what was a iconic business that was co-founded by an iconic gentleman, Alan R. Schoenberg. And that iconic business was dwindling away and really needed some support. And I saw it as an opportunity to capture a brand that's trained, 27,000 recruiters and, made over 825,000 placements, over $17 billion in fees just on the direct side. Yeah, it's incredible on the direct side, not to mention the training programs that were built back in the day, and MRI was innovator in this industry for a long time, including paid fees. And there could be arguments about who started client paid fees, but MRI was certainly an early adopter, if not the founder of that. And there was the opportunity to acquire 300 plus offices on 5 continents around the world that give us an install base and an opportunity to lead, and really, in an archaic industry, Adam, which you're familiar with very much, and you spoke to many of us, it gave us a chance to really transform not just MRI or Protis Global or whomever. It gave us an opportunity to transform an entire industry.
Did you have any hesitations, or was this a clear, no-brainer, opportunities there? I have the vision. Your team has the vision. We're going to take this boat. We're going to take the controls, and we're going to go with it. Were there any hesitations, Bert?
Yeah, the biggest hesitation was my wife, right? I mean, her and I sat down and talked about it, and we had to have the conversation about what it would actually take. and the level of commitment that it takes, and the pace and the work rate that we are running at. This is obviously we were having that conversation before the pandemic, and so we came to a conclusion, and we agreed that this was a great opportunity to do something a little different. She recognized that I kind of had hit my head where I was, and look, man, I'm almost 60 years old. I'm looking to continue to learn. I'm always learning. I'm always working on myself, and I had become stagnant. I probably was not as great a leader as I needed to be at that point in time, because I wasn't growing as a leader, and I had to work on that. And this was an opportunity to really sharpen my skills and do something a little bit bigger in this industry.
And everything, time and place, and everything kind of fell. Do you ever think like, if you weren't in the recruitment business, what you'd be doing? I never really asked that question, but I feel like you're the guy to ask it to.
Oh, man.
What would Bert Miller be doing 2021, almost 60 years old? What would Bert be doing?
I would look, I got to tell you, when I was in my backyard, I wasn't playing on the swing set, and going, hey, someday I want to grow up to be a recruiter. I can tell you that.
Not many people do, right? Most people fall into it, man.
I would have loved to have been an NFL football coach. I mean, that would have been like the ultimate win for me.
You're a Colts fan?
I am a Colts fan.
I mean, it's an important question to ask, because there are some people who live in an area that aren't, and that's always an interesting story there. So I want to shift, and this is something that hits home to me. I pride myself, and I think the reason I do well and my team does well is because I grew up in the world of account management and advertising, and I understand how to manage expectations. I understand how to treat clients, because that's the difference, right? The technical side of recruiting, a lot of recruiters could do. It's not that hard, square peg, square hole, but it's really about the nuances and how you treat those client relationships. And in an article you wrote on the white glove hiring experience, one of the suggestions you made was, quote, once you know someone is a wrong fit, let them know ASAP with honesty. Let's unpack that and talk about how in recruiting, how important that is, and the value to the candidate and the client. Because I think a lot of recruiters, they're just all metrics driven. Get that fee, get that placement, get it in there. But if that candidate's out less than 89 days into a 90-day guarantee, it's going to destroy that relationship. It's going to destroy the relationship with your client, and it's going to create more work for everybody. Let's unpack what that really means, and the whole idea of just being a partner instead of a vendor.
Yeah, well, again, that's the finite game and finite thought process, right, Adam? I mean, you think about, and you said it, I see a fee on a candidate's head, and I see an opportunity to transact that and collect a $30,000 fee and go on to next. And a couple of things. That's it's not the way to build a business. And two, it's not a candidate, it's an individual. That individual, you want to ensure that you're doing the right thing to align their career. We believe in building companies and changing lives, or building companies and building careers, depending on whatever tagline you want to use. And that tagline, words matter here with us. And I think you know enough of us now that's very important. And so that tagline is not by accident. And those individuals, Adam, it's very important. So recruiters out there, think about it. If we go out and do a survey to hiring managers around the country, what do most of them say? Recruiter doesn't listen. They don't call me back. They send me what I don't want to send. Right. If you talk to the individuals out there in the marketplace, yes, I talked to a recruiter. They didn't call me back. And I think the best thing we can always do to an individual is, if they are not the right fit, you have opportunities to A, communicate that, B, as a consultant and advisor, to teach them and educate and counsel them and move them into either another role or down a path where they can work on themselves and upskill themselves to be prepared for their next opportunity.
And that's really what it's all about. And I think, or especially early newer recruiters, it's hard to not chase that fee, not chase that metric, chase that placement. But there's such a power the first time you do that, and you actually are listening to the candidate and you say, Bert, I'm going to pause you right here in this process. I know you're excited about it, but the more I think about it, and hopefully the way you think about it, this just isn't right. I know you're not happy in your job. And all those reasons. And one of the earliest lessons I learned from my mentor, Tom Hull, on first day of recruiting, in addition to plan your work and work your plan, he really taught me, Bert, how to understand a candidate's motivation. Right? Think about the motivation. Understand why a candidate's not happy, or if they are happy, what are they looking for in the next challenge? Do you still mentor young recruiters out there? Like, what are some of those key pieces of advice to those young recruiters to teach them all these lessons that we're talking about to ensure that they're building a solid reputation and foundation for their future in this industry?
Yeah, well, from the individual perspective, as a recruiter, what you need to understand from the individual, are they running away from something or running to something? And then understand the why, and really understand their why, and counsel them along the way. And young recruiters, they get into business. We've all been there. We were all bad at this at one point, right? So
I was good in the beginning, and then I got bad, and then I got better again because I took my foot off the gas. I thought I knew what I was doing 8 months in, and then I'm like, oh, nope.
Yeah, man, I sucked when I started. It took me forever to make my first placement, and so, but here's why. You're actually asking the right question around that. Young recruiters, you come in, you find your space. Some people will call it discipline, industry geography, your sector that you're going to work in, and you're going to become a subject matter expert in your space. And as a new person, you have your own network, right? So then you have a friend that's over here, not in your space, and it's a shiny object. So you chase that shiny object.
Yep.
And then you have somebody else over here, and you chase that one, and you're not investing in building your individual or candidate bank, some would call it, in building that reputation. Because what's really interesting about our business is, if you're doing it the right way, you're making progress when you don't know it, and it's a blind faith. So it's like what you're doing right now. You're building a following every single day, Adam. And and you may not even know, and there's people watching you today that may never go on and respond and engage you in your podcast or your brand at this point in time, but eventually they will, and they're going to continue to follow you and grow. And that's happening through blind faith. You're building that.
I always say it's the micro actions lead to macro steps. And
Perfect.
I think that's really what people need to understand, that there's no shortcuts. You have to put in the work. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's instant gratification, right? They want instant gratification, but they only see us sitting here right now. They see my nice fancy set. They see the big B over there. Like, this is work. This is lots of work to get to this point. It doesn't just happen overnight. Let's shift gears a little bit. We are approaching June 2021. This episode will air a few weeks after that. We're coming out of this thing. We're coming into a whole new world of what the hell work is going to look like, what the hell the office is going to look like. And I posted about this the other day. There's some people that are very polarizing and going on one side or the other, saying everyone needs to work from home, remote forever. And then there's other people that say, the future is back in the office, and it's confusing. And there's a lot of nuances, a lot of factors. I think, for the sake of this conversation, a lot of people are kind of lumping in these white collar computer facing jobs, but there's a whole world out there. I'd love to get your perspective on how leaders need to define the return to work roadmap.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what we have right now, Adam, is the best way to possibly do that. And all leaders that are out there, I would strongly encourage you to consider this, and that is not strongly take a position one way or the other. You may lean toward one side or the other, what you prefer, but I would not strongly take a position. And you're already seeing all the op-eds in the media talking about productivity and I don't think, I don't think we have enough data. I don't know if we truly have
sample set.
Yeah, it's not enough out there. And when you think about geography and the competition amongst geography, for those that want to work remote, you now are competing with everyone, so you're not competing with just Delray Beach. If you want to be, you want to work at MRINe Network in Delray Beach, you're not just competing at Delray Beach. You now are competing with people in Atlanta and Charlotte and Chicago and LA, and it doesn't matter where you are. You think about the compensation model, and if you live in an expensive, high cost of living city, and I can hire a great talent in Indianapolis at a much less compensation, I can hire the same talent in New York City. And so Go ahead.
Yeah, but pause in that for a second. I mean to cut you off there, but here's an important thing. What are your thoughts on pay equity? Should it be okay to pay someone more because of where they live or less because of where they live? If I'm in the middle of the country, why the hell shouldn't you pay me the same as New York?
No, it's a great question. I just think that if you're making a certain amount at a role in Indianapolis, and you're in New York New York may be over indexed, Indianapolis may be under indexed. At some point in time, you want to find what is the fair market value for what you do. I think that's
Right.
the most important thing, Adam, is find the right value for the role.
Right. And then, I mean, all the other complications that no one's really talking about, health insurance, taxes, how that's affecting the back of house. I mean, that's a big thing that MRI offers. I mean, that's a huge thing, right? If someone who lived in New York, all of a sudden now you're living in just say Texas, a no income tax. Like it's a lot of factors here. There's a lot of things too. But I want to go back to another word. Let's talk about productivity. What are you seeing out there internally, and what are you hearing from your clients as far as their teams that are working remotely? Are they seeing an increase in productivity? I mean, is it a blanket statement, yes or no? Or is it really, hey, some people are doing great working from home. They have great setups. They're productive. They don't have kids in their face. And other people, it's a real challenge for logistics, for home. Some people are living with their villains. Some people may not have good Wi-Fi or a place to work.
Yeah, well, that's the age-old question for what we're doing coming out of this thing is, where do you take it, right? So you may have, if you're in New York, you may have a very, very small apartment with everybody running around. How are you going to be totally productive in that environment versus somebody in another part of the country that may have more room? But what I'm hearing, look, I don't think you put a blanket over anything at this moment in time, Adam. I think what you're looking at is, again, stepping back and capturing more and more data. When you look at what has been reasonably effective, is the mundane activities are pretty productive. When you're looking at highly collaborative, strategic, not that it couldn't happen, but when you're looking at highly collaborative and strategic work where people need to bounce things from one another, it certainly is much easier and more efficient. Not that it can't be done remotely, but it's much more efficient to be in the room with somebody. And if I were to make a prediction, again, I'm not going to give you
Bert Stradamus over there.
Yeah, man, Bert, exactly, man. If I would make a prediction, I think, and again, this is not just mine, I think it's going to land up in a 4:1, 3:2 ratio. I think we're going to move a little bit toward that way.
I talked about this with Joe when I was down there in February. I see the great talent migration happening. People are, during the pandemic, they have experimented with side hustles, passion projects, leaving jobs. I mean, we see in the recruitment industry, there's a shortage of good recruiters out there. I have that problem. The return to work, there's some companies that are saying, hey, we're opening back up. We would like everybody back there. And some people are like, nope, I ain't doing that. And they're leaving. And then it's on the flip side, and I don't think it's being talked about a lot, that there are people who want to go back to the office and their companies are now fully remote. And they're like, shit, I've been waiting to get out of my house for 18 months and now I can't go back to the office. There's a great migration. What are you seeing across the industry?
Yeah, that's where companies and people have made decisions too quickly. I think that, again, you're not capturing. Yeah, you're not capturing the data. You're spending too time, which is ironic, right? Tech companies are not capturing the data. But anyhow, when you think about that, Adam, when I think about it, anyhow, I look at it from the perspective of learning the individual. I would say let them know what your intentions are, have a why behind it, and work with them to get back to what the objective ultimately is mutually. You're looking at people that are sitting at home. Their homes have been the playground, recess. It's been a cafe. It's been a restaurant. It's been a
laundromat.
Yeah, it's been everything to them, and they're chomping at the bit to get out and get back to the office. And I think we got to get some normalcy, whatever that new normalcy is going to be, but some normalcy back in play.
Yeah, it's gonna play out, but it comes down to leadership. And I want to talk about leadership, and I want to talk about your approach to selecting leaders. You've been around long enough where you see traits, you could read between the lines. Love to hear your thoughts on leadership and selecting.
Yeah, well, you've probably heard this already. I mean, we think alike here at MRINe Network for what we do, and I think Joe's a big piece of this as well, and that is it's very similar to what I've done at Protis Global over the years, even back in the days of Revlon. People that are conscientious, I look at attributes and characteristics more than just always the skill set and experiences. I mean, I believe in the best athlete versus versus drafting for a position, unless you can get a the franchise quarterback. Outside of that, it's just always best athlete. And so conscientiousness with somebody that's detailed and responsible. You certainly want people, Adam, that are, they're intelligent. And of course, you want all the other attributes that, that come across that every company wants. Those two, though, tend to stand out for us. Then you want to align those with the personal scorecard. And, part of that is asking people the question, what's important to you personally, professionally, and financially? And that's not what you want, but what your goals are. And I say that because if I'd ask 100 people what they want, I say, do you want $1 million? 100 people more than likely would say yes. Okay, here's the process to earn $1 million. Now you only have 2 or 3 people standing. And when you're going through an interview process like that with an individual, it's pretty incredible when you're talking to them, the comments they make and the red flags they bring up and the places that you can go and the capillaries off the aorta that you can go down those paths.
Red flags. Yeah, red flags are interesting. And there's red flags, there's pink flags. And it's interesting whenever I talk to clients and we're taking an intake meeting, I try to unpack from that perspective too, from a character team kind of vibe, right? Like what works on this team, what doesn't. You mentioned something in our pre-show around future skills. And I think future skills apply to everyone within an organization, leadership all the way down. What are some of these future skills that we found during this pandemic that are critical? And what are some future skills that have been kind of in the works for a long time that are really rising to the surface?
Yeah, well, obviously the digital transition for many companies has had a major effect. There's a large adult beverage company, a spirits company that was already on a digital journey that was going to be a 3-year map. And what ultimately happened, the pandemic hit and they accelerated that. And so we've seen a lot of things accelerate due to the pandemic. And you're watching roles change before our very eyes, where this company had to pivot people from, say, off-premise. Many of those folks that had the ability to go into e-com, into e-com strategies and e-com parts of the business, and being able to move toward ordering a bourbon that you can have dropped at your front door, which many people didn't know that.
Like a field sales rep had to now figure out how to do everything online.
Exactly. So, I did a post the other day. People really need to consider what the upskilling components are for themselves. Where is their role going? Are they looking at their companies? Are they reading the headlines? Are they reading articles about where their industry is going? And are they able to unwind that to a point of understanding where they literally need to work on their skills? Because automation, robotics, we will lose a lot of roles. We're going to, it's estimated we'll lose around 85 million roles. And it's also estimated, though, that's going to create 97 million opportunities. So there's a plus 12 million. It's just different opportunities in those 97 million that people need to be prepared to fill. And right now, we have 9 million people out of work. We have 7.5 million open jobs. And I have friends go, well, why don't those 9.5 million go work for those 7.5 open jobs? Because they're not qualified.
It's not the way it works, people. And I say that too, when people break down the unemployment numbers, I go, you have to really dissect it and look at it by sector. In my world, in the digital marketing world, e-commerce, subscription-based marketing, performance marketing, media has accelerated incredibly because everything has shifted online. The demand for performance media roles is off the charts. I can't find anybody to fill some of these roles. Something I want to double back to, talking about the pandemic, how it really has affected working mothers, working parents, because I think that it's not being spoken about enough. And I'm talking about it specifically on the part of the performance, job performance. They have to wear the hat of the teacher. They're taking care of the kids in the house. They're trying to hold their job down. They're managing their own job performance and making sure that somebody who doesn't have these obligations is not sneaking up behind them and kicking them out of the way. What are you seeing out there? What are your thoughts on professional women in the workplace?
Yeah. Man, I got to tell you, in February of 2020, women professionals had come along and progressed in the world of work probably further than ever in the history of the world of work, right? And then, March hit. And to your point, there's been, nurturing, taking care of kids, and things have been impacted. And statistically, it's out there. You can read it, and the numbers may vary from person to person or article to article. But, just under 2.5 times of the people of women lost their roles either through, voluntary, involuntary, furlough, whatever the case may have been, right, taking care of their families than men did. And I literally think, Adam, if we're not careful or don't address it, the woman professional has really lost a generation almost in time. And so what an opportunity for those who can see that to appeal to the professional woman who's looking to get back into the workforce, or maybe they learned something from their company if they did not lose their role, and they learned something about what life is and the kind of role that they really want and purpose. What about the companies around their hiring brand really appealing to these really talented women professionals and helping bring them back?
Yeah, and I mean, on the flip side too, we see Whitney Wolf over at Bumble. We see I forget her name, the CEO over at Vimeo, taking these companies public, and they're a shining example as well of what can be done. It's fascinating here. So let's shift gears. Let's kind of take it into the final stretch, the final laps. I don't even know what I'm not an auto racing guy. That's not the victory lap yet, but we're in the final stretch here. Anybody who follows Bert, he's got a pretty good Instagram, and I like the balcony. I can't wait to come down and have a cocktail out on your balcony. But you're an active guy, right? You're constantly exercising, running, and football and baseball. What's the greatest benefit to having, an athlete's mindset in this line of work that we do?
Well, I don't know. I think anybody who had a passion for what allowed them to go down a path, whether it be athletics, band, whatever the case may be, is important. But I can only speak for myself on that. And when I grew up, Adam, I was the first one to go to school and university from my family on either side. And I had that opportunity. And as a young person, you're always trying to find who you are and find that confidence. And sports gave that to me. And you learn in athletics to your teammates. You have different socioeconomic backgrounds, different races, different cultures. The way you operate, you learn to get along. You learn to grab the oar, if you will, and row in the same direction from many, many different backgrounds. You learn to fail, not surrender, but you learn to fail, and you learn how to win together and how to go after a common purpose, as I mentioned. And that allows for people to take those pieces and embed those into their DNA. Or certainly add to your DNA at a conscious level. And so when life happens and work happens, Adam, you have data points, you have these pieces that you can go back to that allows you to continue to push. And, I've been in the world of work now for almost 38 years. I'm trying to take 10 years off.
It's almost time for your gold Rolex.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a while. I'm giving my age away big time. And anyhow, over that 38 years, Adam, it hasn't always been great. There's been times of uncertainty, and I think you always can go back to the points that you built a foundation around to tap into when it's necessary. And I think it's incredibly important.
I love it. Tremendous. Bert, what is the word authentic mean to you? That's something that, really resonates with you and Joe and everything you guys have built down there. What does that word authentic really mean? How do you define it? It's now becoming one of the word, it's overused. Buzz du jour.
Yeah, it is. I think it's incredibly important that you ensure that people believe and know that that you care, that they're safe, that you take time to over communicate, and that you have a vision in mind that you're able to articulate, and it's purposeful, and you're willing to, and you're able to help them come along for that ride and show them the path so they get excited about it. It's kind of funny. I literally had somebody say to me at MRINe Network, and so that I was disingenuous. And I'm going, wow, disingenuous. Tell me about that. And they're going, well, when I bought MRINe Network, I was in Philadelphia, and nobody talked. You know, keep in mind they went through 12 presidents in 16 years to figure that thing out.
Right.
And so I go in there, Adam, and everybody's heads are down and nobody's talking. It's like a morgue. And every morning I would go in and say hi to people one by one, talk to them. And it got around that I was disingenuous because I just kind of like, fake talking to people. And then finally it became real because they finally go, this cat can't keep doing that every single day over this period of time.
Not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. And it came up, this conversation, we had the conversation the other day, and I said, I've always done that. That's who I am. And that's the way I operate. And I think that's authentic because it's real. And authenticity is who you are. Are you consistent? Are you the same person day in, day out, good or bad, for a sustained period of time? And when things are bad, you're able to dial it back and remain calm. And when things are great, they know the expectations is coming. You're going to push them and nudge them a little bit. So be consistent.
Great answer there. You kind of alluded to it earlier with your dad, but I'm curious, Bert, what is the single greatest piece of advice you've ever received that you take action on every single day?
Man, great question. I honestly, to take the road less traveled, I think we, we're programmed to be sheep, man. I mean, we're programmed to be sheep.
Follow the herd.
Yeah. And so we all move in the same direction. We decide what is right. We decide what is wrong. And, we decide what's politically correct and what's not politically correct. And I just, when that happens, I use an approach of just stepping back and saying, why do I have to go to school? Why do I have to get this job? And why do I need to do that for 40 years and collect that gold watch? Why do I need to do that? Because everybody else does that. And the white picket fence, I think for those that can step back and look at something and go and ask themselves the why that even exists and say, is there another way? Is there another alternative? And, that's why there's Tesla and many other companies in the world. And that's why there's certain people that lead that you go, wow, that person didn't come from Harvard. That person doesn't have that education. That person doesn't know. It's because they've taken the road less traveled.
Yeah. And it takes a certain type of person to do that. And I really count my lucky stars that I have folks like you around me to see that, to see what's possible, to say, nope, make it when they zig, you zag. The last, 17, 18 months has been insane for everybody. I'd love if you could share, Bert, a personal silver lining and a professional silver lining. Tell us a little bit about the good that has come out of this bad.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, there's a lot more good than there has bad. I think the headlines, certainly we have to be sensitive to what occurred, and we have to be sensitive to a lot of that and all those things. However, we as people, we as humans are strong. I mean, we really are. Our bodies do amazing things, and our minds do amazing things also. So personally, for me, I've become a stronger person in terms of making sure I'm communicating with my family. I've had an opportunity to spend some time with them on little vacations and hiatuses a little bit during the holidays, and really relish that time together and do what we do. So that on the personal front is very important to me. On the professional line, Adam, the pandemic gave MRI, I described MRI earlier in the show, and the pandemic gave MRI why everybody was thinking about what to do next and did not know what to do next. And some people even pulling back and you saw a lot of contraction in the marketplace. It gave us an opportunity, Adam, and you've spoken to Joe and you've seen what we've done at MRI when you were down here. It gave us an opportunity to invest. We kept hiring. We kept investing in our network. We kept investing in our managing partners, the owners of our offices throughout the world. We communicated with them. We created digital shows where we could talk to them and get to them and try to create an environment we're big on community, where we can bring the community together as best you can And I think the pandemic gave us a chance to gain ground, and I gain ground on others that may not have taken that, what I would call, more assertive and bold approach.
And that's leadership. That's vision, that's leadership, that's all those pieces. And last but not least, Bert, when you look back at your life, you look back at that journey, and you look back at those moments that maybe weren't so bright and shiny, those tough times when you really had to dig down deep inside and harness that inner tenacity to pull you up and pull you forward and go in the right direction. And on the flip side, we're sitting here now. You're sitting out on your balcony with your kids, with your wife, this business that you bought and you growing, and you're building something so incredible, and you want to show gratitude. What keeps you focused? What is your compass? Bert Miller, what is your North Star?
Yeah, never chase the money. You chase the money, you make bad decisions. So 100%. Chase what you do, chase your purpose. I'm watching you do it now, man. You are so into what you're doing and doing a great job at it. Why you're doing great, because you're passionate about it. And there's a purpose for what you're doing. And I really believe when people chase money, they make bad decisions. When they chase money and they hit the money, that will ultimately make them make bad decisions. Never chase the money, man. Never. Just do it for the love of the game.
I appreciate that immensely. I appreciate you and your time, and thank you for being there for me and so many. And thanks for coming on the show, Bert.
Absolutely, man. We need some magnets.
Oh, I'm going to send the whole boatload down there. Bert, where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
Yeah, Instagram, Bert Miller, MRI. LinkedIn, obviously, Bert Miller, Bert Miller. And of course, YouTube. You have YouTube Beyond the Bottom Line with Bert Miller, which I really, I've had some great guests on there. We've had the CEO of Hostess and Paps, and by the way, we have a good one coming up. You guys will probably see it in late July, early August. Chris Voss will be part of the show as well.
FBI negotiator.
Yeah, he's outstanding. Of course,
I saw him live. He was crazy. He was great. Yeah, crazy in a good way. I mean, I was like, whoa. Yeah. This is good stuff right here.
He's fantastic. And of course, Raul so we've really focused on what I would call high performance leaders in the world of work. And so please go there if you want to. And of course, MRINe.com.
Check it out, everybody. Bert, I appreciate you. Thanks for making the time. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on the podcast. You know where to find us on all the social media channels at thepodcast.com. Remember, take care of each other, look out for one another, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.